The woman sinking in the black water wasn't supposed to be my problem. I had my own nightmare chasing me across state lines, a husband who'd rather see me dead than free. But when I saw her pregnant belly pressed against the SUV's window, something in me refused to keep running. I didn't know her name. Didn't know her brother controlled half of Florida's underworld. Didn't know that 7 minutes of CPR on a storm-battered dock would trade one kind of danger for another. All I knew was this: some choices you can't take back, and some debts can never be repaid. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. And if you're here for the whole ride, hit that like button now. The rain hit Miami like punishment. Lena Mercer gripped the steering wheel of her stolen Honda Civic with hands that hadn't stopped shaking in 3 days. The windshield wipers couldn't keep up with the deluge, turning the highway into a blur of red taillights and wet asphalt. Her phone, the burner she'd bought in a gas station outside Atlanta, sat dark in the cup holder. She'd thrown her real one into a river in Tennessee, watched it sink alongside the last piece of her old identity. Her ribs ached where Adrian had kicked her. 5 days ago, felt like 5 years. The bruises under her shirt had turned that sick yellow-green color, the kind that meant they were healing but still hurt like hell when she breathed too deep. She'd counted them in a truck stop bathroom mirror somewhere in Georgia, 7 distinct marks, each one a punctuation mark in the argument that had finally made her run. The argument where he'd told her exactly how he'd make her disappear if she ever tried to leave. Lightning split the sky, and for a second the whole world went white. Lena flinched, her foot easing off the gas. The Civic hydroplaned slightly, tires losing purchase, and her heart kicked against her sternum hard enough to hurt. "Easy," she whispered to herself. "Easy, you're almost there." Wherever there was, she had $4,200 in cash stuffed into a tampon box in her backpack. She had the clothes she'd been wearing when she'd climbed out their bedroom window at 2 in the morning. She had a USB drive she'd stolen from Adrian's home office, the one he didn't know she knew about, tucked into the lining of her bra. And she had approximately 72 hours before he'd have every law enforcement contact in his considerable network looking for her. Because Adrian Cross wasn't just her husband. He was a federal prosecutor with a perfect conviction record, a sprawling network of professional allies, and a private face that would terrify anyone who'd only seen his public one. The man gave speeches about justice, then came home and made her kneel on rice while he explained, very calmly, all the ways she'd disappointed him that day. Lena's hands tightened on the wheel. The highway curved, following the coast. Through the rain, she could barely make out the dark mass of the ocean, churning and furious under the storm. She'd never been to Florida before. Had picked Miami half at random, big enough to disappear in, far enough from DC that maybe Adrian's reach wouldn't extend quite so easily. Stupid. Probably. Adrian's reach extended everywhere. But she'd had to pick something, and sitting still meant dying, so here she was, driving through a tropical storm with stolen money and evidence she didn't fully understand, hoping that the woman who'd existed before she'd met Adrian Cross 6 years ago was still in there somewhere, waiting to be remembered. A semi-truck passed her, throwing up a wave of water that completely blinded her for 3 terrifying seconds. When her vision cleared, she saw the exit sign, Biscayne Boulevard, 2 miles. She took it. The exit ramp curved down into a maze of smaller roads, less maintained, darker. The rain was somehow worse here, hammering the roof of the Civic like it was trying to cave it in. Lena leaned forward, squinting through the windshield, trying to figure out where the hell she was going. A cheap motel. That's what she needed. Somewhere that took cash and didn't ask questions. Somewhere she could sleep for a few hours without dreaming about Adrian's hands around her throat. The road bent sharply. She took the curve too fast, felt the tires slip again, overcorrected. The Civic fishtailed, and she gasped, both hands fighting the wheel. Then she saw the headlights. They came out of nowhere. Or maybe they'd been there all along, and she just hadn't seen them through the rain. High beams, too bright, swerving erratically across the center line. A big vehicle, SUV maybe, coming straight at her. Lena yanked the wheel hard right. The Civic skidded sideways, tires screaming. The SUV missed her by inches. She felt the displacement of air as it rocketed past, and then she was slamming on the brakes, heart in her throat. The Civic spinning in a slow, sick circle before coming to rest half on the shoulder, half in a ditch. For a second, she just sat there, breathing hard, rain pounding overhead. Then she looked in the rearview mirror. The SUV's taillights were zigzagging wildly. As she watched, the vehicle swerved completely off the road, crashed through a guardrail, and disappeared. Lena's breath stopped. She heard the impact even over the rain, a massive metallic crunch, followed by a splash that was somehow louder than it should have been. Water. There was water past that guardrail. Her hand was on the door handle before her brain caught up with her body. No. No, you can't. You don't stop. You don't get involved. That's how Adrian finds you. But she was already out of the car, rain immediately soaking through her clothes, cold and vicious. She ran toward the broken guardrail, legs shaky, ribs screaming with every breath. The road curved alongside some kind of inlet, the bay, maybe. She didn't know Miami's geography. Black water, churning with the storm. And there, about 15 feet from the rocky shore, the SUV was sinking. Not slowly, fast. The headlights were still on, pointing down into the murk, giving the water a sickly greenish glow. She could see the vehicle tilting forward, hood already submerged, water rushing in through the broken windows. There was someone inside. Lena saw the shape of them, moving frantically, trapped behind the driver's side window. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She looked around wildly. No other cars, no houses. Just rain and darkness, and the SUV sinking faster now, rear end rising out of the water like a capsizing ship. "Call 911. That's what you do. You call, and then you leave, and you don't look back. But her phone was in the car, and the SUV was going under now, and whoever was in there had maybe 30 seconds before the whole thing went down, and Lena ran. Down the rocky embankment, feet slipping, her ankle twisting painfully on a loose stone. She didn't slow down. Hit the water at a full sprint, the cold stealing her breath, the waves immediately trying to shove her back toward shore. She fought through them. The SUV was 10 feet away. 8, 6. The water was up to her chest now, then her shoulders. A wave broke over her head and she went under, the world turning into black chaos, her lungs seizing with the cold. She kicked hard, broke the surface gasping, kept moving. The SUV's rear window was right there. Lena grabbed the door handle, braced her feet against the vehicle's side, and pulled. Locked. Of course it was locked. She pounded on the window, trying to see through the rain-streaked glass. A face appeared on the other side. A woman. Younger than Lena, dark hair plastered to her skull, eyes wide with terror. Her mouth was moving, shouting something Lena couldn't hear, and below the waterline, just visible through the window, a pregnant belly. Something in Lena's chest cracked open. "Hold on!" she screamed, even though the woman couldn't hear her. "Hold on!" She looked around frantically. The shore was too far to swim for a rock. The SUV was sinking faster now, the rear end tilting up at a 45-degree angle, maybe 15 seconds before it went completely under. Lena pulled off her jacket, wrapped it around her fist, and slammed it into the window as hard as she could. Nothing, not even a crack. Again, harder. The cold was making her clumsy, her movements slow and uncoordinated. Again. The window spiderwebbed. The woman inside was pounding too now, both of them hitting the same spot, and on the third combined impact the glass shattered inward. Water rushed into the SUV in a roaring torrent. Lena grabbed the door frame, pulled herself closer. The woman was thrashing, trying to get her seatbelt off, but her hands were shaking too badly. The water was up to her chin, then her mouth. Then she went under. Lena didn't think. She dragged herself through the broken window, felt glass tear into her forearm, didn't care. The inside of the SUV was a nightmare of churning water and floating debris. She found the woman's shoulder, traced it down to her chest, found the seatbelt buckle. It was jammed. No. Lena's lungs were starting to burn. She'd been under for maybe 20 seconds, had maybe 20 more. She pulled the woman up by her collar, got her face above the waterline for a second, just long enough for her to suck in one desperate breath, then dove back down to the seatbelt. She found the buckle again, pulled. Nothing. Pulled harder. Nothing. The SUV lurched. They were going down. Lena's vision was starting to gray at the edges. Her hands felt like they belonged to someone else. She found the seatbelt strap itself, got her fingers underneath it, and pulled with everything she had left. The strap tore. Not cleanly, it didn't snap, it sort of disintegrated, frayed beyond bearing, but it was enough. The woman came free, and Lena grabbed her around the chest and kicked off from the SUV's floor. They broke the surface together, both of them gasping and choking. The SUV was completely submerged now, just a dark shape sinking into deeper water, its headlights fading. "Swim!" Lena tried to yell, but it came out as a rasp. "You have to swim!" The woman wasn't moving. Her eyes were open but unfocused, her body limp in Lena's arms. Shit. Shit. The shore was impossibly far, the waves were massive, shoving them back and forth like toys. Lena got the woman's back against her chest, wrapped one arm around her torso under her arms, and started kicking. Every muscle in her body was screaming. The cold had moved past pain into something worse, a creeping numbness that made her movements slow and stupid. She couldn't feel her feet, couldn't feel her hands, just kept kicking, kept pulling the woman with her, kept her face above water even as the waves tried to drown them both. The shore didn't seem to be getting closer. "You're going to die here. You escaped Adrian, and you're going to die in Miami saving a stranger." But her legs kept kicking anyway. A wave broke over both of them. Lena went under, held tight to the woman even as the water tried to rip her away. When they surfaced, she thought maybe the shore was closer. 10 feet, 8, 6. Her foot hit something solid and she nearly sobbed with relief. Rock. She'd found the bottom. She dragged the woman the last few feet, pulled her up onto the rocky shore, collapsed beside her. For a second, she just lay there, chest heaving, tasting salt and rain. Then she looked at the woman. She wasn't breathing. "No," Lena said. "No, come on. You don't get to die now. I didn't pull you out so you could die." She rolled the woman onto her back, tilted her head, checked her airway. Water poured out of her mouth. Lena wiped it away, positioned her hands on the woman's sternum, careful, so careful because of the baby, and started compressions. "Come on," she said between pushes. "Come on, come on." 30 compressions, 2 breaths. The woman's lips were blue. 30 more compressions. 2 more breaths. "Come on." Lena lost track of time. The rain kept falling, the water kept churning, and she kept going, compressions and breaths, compressions and breaths, her arms burning, her ribs screaming where Adrian had kicked her, until the woman convulsed. Water erupted from her mouth, and Lana barely got her turned on her side before she vomited seawater and bile all over the rocks. "That's it," Lena said, her voice cracking. "That's it. Get it out. You're okay. You're okay." The woman coughed violently, her whole body shaking. Then she sucked in a rattling breath, and another, and her eyes opened. Dark eyes, brown, almost black. They found Lena's face and locked there. "My baby," she whispered. "Still there?" Lena said. "I felt him kicking when I pulled you out. He's still there." The woman's hand went to her belly. She was still shaking, still coughing, but something in her face relaxed. Then headlights washed over them. A car, no, 2 cars, coming fast down the road. They screeched to a stop near the broken guardrail, and car doors slammed. "Isabella!" A man's voice, rough with fear. "Isabella!" The woman, Isabella, tried to sit up. Lena helped her, bracing her shoulders. 3 men came running down the embankment. 2 of them were big, built like linebackers, wearing expensive suits that were now soaked through. The third was taller, moving with a predator's grace, and even in the rain and darkness, Lena could tell he was in charge. He reached them in seconds, dropped to his knees beside Isabella. "What happened?" His voice was controlled, but Lena heard the razor edge underneath. "Who did this?" "The road," Isabella said, her voice hoarse. "I swerved. Thought I saw it. It doesn't matter. I went off. She saved me." Isabella's hand shot out, grabbed Lena's wrist. "This woman. She pulled me out. She dove in and pulled me out." Roman's eyes shifted to Lena. She'd been around powerful men her whole life, had learned to recognize the type. This one was different from Adrian, less polished, more gekeked, but the danger was just as real, maybe more. "What's your name?" he asked. Lena's throat was raw from the salt water. "Lena." "You live around here?" "Just passing through." His eyes narrowed. He looked at her the way Adrian's prosecutor friends looked at defendants, cataloging details, filing away inconsistencies. Lena was suddenly, painfully aware of what she must look like. soaked, shivering, wearing clothes that didn't fit right because she'd grabbed them at random from her closet while running. The bruises on her arms were probably visible. The cut on her forearm from the glass was bleeding into the rain. She looked like someone running from something. "You just happened to be driving by," Roman said slowly, "in the middle of a tropical storm, and you saw my sister go off the road." "Yes." "And you jumped in without thinking." "I thought about it," Lena said, "for about 3 seconds. Then I did it anyway." One of the big men muttered something in Italian. Roman held up a hand, silencing him. "Take Isabella to the car," he said. "Get her to Dr. Castellano. Now." The two men moved immediately, lifting Isabella with surprising gentleness. She tried to protest, but Roman cut her off with a look. As they carried her up the embankment, she called back over her shoulder, "Don't let her leave, Roman. She saved my life. She saved my baby." Then they were gone, and Lena was alone on the rocks with a man whose eyes were measuring her for a grave. "Tell me again," Roman said quietly. "Tell me exactly what you're doing in Miami." Lena's mind raced. Every instinct she'd developed over 6 years with Adrian told her to lie, to construct something plausible, to make herself seem harmless and forgettable. But she was so tired of lying. "Running," she said. Roman's expression didn't change. "From what?" "A bad situation." "Police?" "No." "FBI?" "No. Nothing like that." She met his eyes. "Personal. It's personal." He studied her for a long moment. Rain ran down both their faces. Somewhere in the distance, sirens were starting to wail. "Those cops," Roman said. "They're going to want a statement. You want to give them one?" Every part of her screamed no. Talking to cops meant records. Records meant Adrian finding her. Roman saw the answer in her face before she said anything. "Right," he said. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get in my car. We're going to leave before they arrive. And you're going to come with me while I figure out if you're who you say you are, or if this whole thing was some kind of setup." "It wasn't a setup." "We'll see." He stood, held out a hand. Lena looked at it for a second. This was a threshold, and once she crossed it, there would be no going back. Then took it. His grip was firm. He pulled her to her feet easily, steadying her when she swayed. "Can you walk?" "Yes." "Then walk." They made it to the car. A black Mercedes that looked like it cost more than Lena had made in the last 3 years, just as the first police cruiser came around the bend. Roman opened the back door, and Lena slid in without arguing. He got in beside her, and the driver pulled out smoothly, heading in the opposite direction. No one stopped them. Lena leaned her head back against the leather seat and tried to process what had just happened. She'd saved a woman from drowning. The woman turned out to be someone important enough to have men in suits and expensive cars show up within minutes. And now she was being driven to an unknown location by a man who thought she might be part of some kind of conspiracy. This was not how you disappeared successfully. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe," Roman said, "for both of us. I'm not a threat to you. Everyone's a threat until they prove otherwise." Lena didn't have an answer for that. It was basically her philosophy on life, too. The car drove through neighborhoods that got progressively nicer. Big houses behind gates, manicured lawns, the kind of area where stolen Hondas and women in thrift store clothes didn't belong. They pulled up to a gate set into a high stone wall. The driver entered a code and the gate swung open silently. The house beyond was massive, Spanish colonial style, all white stucco and terracotta tiles, with palm trees lining the circular drive. The car stopped at the front entrance. Roman got out, waited for Lena to do the same. "You're bleeding," he said, gesturing to her arm. Lena looked down. The cut from the glass had soaked through her sleeve, leaving a dark stain. "It's not bad. We have a doctor here for Isabella. He'll look at it." "I'm fine." It wasn't a request. He led her inside. The foyer was 2 stories tall, with a chandelier that probably cost more than Lena's entire life savings. Marble floors. Art on the walls that might have been real, might have been worth millions. The kind of place Adrian would have fit into perfectly. The thought made her stomach turn. A woman appeared from a side hallway, older, professionally dressed, with sharp eyes that took in Lena's appearance in one sweep. "Get her dry clothes," Roman said. "Then bring her to my study." The woman nodded and gestured for Lena to follow. They went upstairs, down a hallway lined with closed doors, into a bedroom that was bigger than Lena's entire apartment back in D.C. had been. "Shower's through there," the woman said, pointing. "I'll find something that fits. You're about Isabella's size, yes?" "I don't know. We'll make it work." The woman's expression softened slightly. "Isabella called while you were in the car. She wanted me to make sure you were taken care of. She said you saved her life." "I just did what anyone would have done." "No," the woman said quietly. "You didn't. Most people would have driven past, especially in this weather, especially running from something the way you clearly are." Lena's jaw tightened. "I'm not going to ask," the woman continued. "Not my business. But you should know, Mr. Moretti doesn't trust easily. And right now, he's trying to decide if you're a guardian angel or a very sophisticated threat. What happens next depends on which one you turn out to be." She left before Lena could respond. Lena stood in the middle of the enormous bedroom, dripping water on expensive carpet, and felt the weight of the day crash down on her all at once. 5 days ago, she'd been in D.C., married to a monster, trapped in a life that was killing her piece by piece. Now she was in Miami, in a mansion that probably belonged to the Mafia, waiting to be interrogated by a man who looked at her like she might be an assassin. And the worst part was, she had no idea which situation was more dangerous. She showered because she didn't know what else to do. The water was hot, almost too hot, and it burned against her cold skin. She watched the salt water and rain swirl down the drain, mixed with a little blood from the cut on her arm. When she got out, there were clothes laid out on the bed. Good clothes. Designer jeans that fit almost perfectly. A soft cashmere sweater, underwear still in the package. The woman had left medical supplies too, antibiotic ointment, gauze, tape. Lena dressed, bandaged her arm, looked at herself in the mirror. She looked like a different person, cleaner, less desperate, almost like someone who belonged in a house like this. Almost. There was a knock on the door. "Come in," Lena called. The woman from before entered. "Mr. Moretti is ready for you." Lena followed her back downstairs through the massive house to a room at the rear. The study was all dark wood and leather, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of mahogany. Roman was standing by the window, looking out at the rain-soaked grounds. He turned when Lena entered. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a chair. Lena sat. Roman studied her for a long moment. Then he moved to the desk, leaned against it, arms crossed. "My sister is 6 months pregnant," he said. "The baby is healthy. The doctor says she's going to be fine, thanks to you. Do you understand what that means?" "That I'm glad I was there." "It means you saved 2 lives that are very important to me. It also means I owe you a debt." His expression was unreadable. "And I don't like owing debts to people I don't know." "You don't owe me anything." "That's not how it works in my world." He pulled out his phone, set it on the desk. "I had my people run your plates. The Honda Civic is registered to someone named Lena Mercer. That you?" Her heart kicked. "Yes." Lena Mercer from Washington, D.C., married 6 years ago to Adrian Cross, federal prosecutor, currently employed at... He looked at the phone. Nowhere. No employment records for the last 4 years. "I was a housewife. In a $10 million house in Georgetown. Your husband makes just under $200,000 a year as a prosecutor. That math doesn't add up. His family has money. Old money. The Crosses have been in D.C. since before the Civil War." Roman's eyes were flat, unreadable. "And your husband is currently one of the most successful prosecutors in the country. 97% conviction rate. The kind of man who doesn't like to lose. Ever." Lena's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs, tried to keep her voice steady. "What's your point?" "My point is that women don't usually run from successful prosecutors in the middle of the night unless they have a very good reason. So I'm asking you, Lena, what's your reason?" She could feel the weight of the USB drive against her chest, tucked into her bra. Evidence she didn't fully understand, stolen from a man who would kill her for taking it. "He hurts me," she said quietly. Roman's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Physically?" "Yes." "How long?" "Since the beginning. It got worse over time." "You went to the police?" Lena almost laughed. "He is the police. Or close enough. Every cop in D.C. knows him. Half of them have worked cases with him. Who do you think they'd believe? Roman was quiet for a moment. Then he pushed off from the desk, moved to a cabinet against the wall, poured 2 glasses of something amber. He held one out to her. Lena took it. Whiskey. Good whiskey, the kind Adrian used to drink while explaining her failures. She drank it anyway. I know what you are, Lena said. I'm not stupid. This house, the men in suits, the way everyone jumps when you speak, I know what that means. And what do I do with that knowledge? Roman asked. Nothing. I'm not going to tell anyone. I just want to disappear. People don't disappear anymore. Not really. Not unless someone helps them. Lena met his eyes. Are you offering? I'm considering it. My sister thinks you're a hero. She wants you to stay. Wants to repay you properly. I don't need repayment. What do you need? The question hung in the air between them. What did she need? A new identity. Money. Time to figure out what to do with the evidence she'd stolen. A place where Adrian couldn't find her. Time, she said finally. I need time to think. Roman nodded slowly. You can have it. Stay here, for now, until we figure out what to do with you. And if you decide I'm a threat, then we'll have a different conversation. It wasn't reassuring, but it was honest, and Lena respected that more than false comfort. Okay, she said. Elena will show you to a guest room. We'll talk more tomorrow, when Isabella is settled. He moved toward the door, then stopped, looked back. The cut on your arm, he said. From the window? Yes. That took courage. Stupid, maybe, but courage. His expression was unreadable. I value courage, even when it comes from people I don't trust yet. Then he was gone, and Lena was alone in the study with an empty glass and the sound of rain against the windows. She should run, she knew that. Should grab the clothes on her back and walk out the front door and disappear into Miami before Roman Moretti decided she was more trouble than she was worth. But she was so tired, tired of running, tired of fear, tired of living like a ghost in her own life. And part of her, the part that had jumped into black water to save a stranger, wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd stumbled into something better than what she'd left behind, even if it was just as dangerous. Elena led her upstairs again, this time to a different wing of the house. The guest room was smaller than Isabella's room, but still more luxurious than anywhere Lena had ever stayed. The bed looked like something from a hotel magazine, and the windows overlooked gardens that probably looked beautiful when they weren't being destroyed by tropical rain. Breakfast is at 7, Elena said from the doorway. But if you need anything before then, there's a phone on the nightstand. Dial 0. Thank you. Elena hesitated, then spoke again. Isabella's room is down the hall, 3rd door on the left. The doctor gave her something to help her sleep, but she asked me to tell you where she was. In case you needed anything. The kindness in her voice made Lena's throat tight. I won't bother her. She wouldn't see it as bothering. Elena's expression softened. You gave her back her life tonight, her baby's life. That's not a small thing in this house. After Elena left, Lena sat on the edge of the bed and tried to organize her thoughts. She'd been running on adrenaline for so long that now, in the quiet, everything was catching up to her. Her body ached everywhere. The cut on her arm throbbed despite the bandage. Her ribs felt like someone was driving nails into them every time she took a deep breath. But she was alive. And for the first time in 5 days, she wasn't sleeping in her car or a truck stop bathroom. She pulled the USB drive from her bra, turned it over in her hands. She'd grabbed it from Adrian's office on impulse, hadn't even looked at what was on it. Just knew that he kept it locked in a drawer he thought she didn't know about, and that he checked it obsessively, like it contained something he couldn't afford to lose. Insurance, maybe. Or leverage. Adrian collected both the way other people collected stamps. She should look at it, should know what she was carrying, but exhaustion was pulling at her like an undertow, and the thought of facing whatever secrets Adrian had been keeping made her want to throw the drive out the window and pretend she'd never taken it. Tomorrow, she told herself. Tomorrow, she'd figure it out. She hid the drive in the lining of her backpack, took 2 ibuprofen from the medical supplies Elena had left, and crawled into bed fully dressed. Sleep came faster than she expected, pulling her down into darkness where Adrian's voice couldn't follow. She woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a second, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came back. The storm, the drowning woman, Roman's flat stare across the study. She sat up slowly, her entire body protesting. The clock on the nightstand said 9:47 a.m. She'd slept for almost 10 hours. There were clothes laid out on the chair by the window, more of Isabella's probably. Jeans, a soft white t-shirt, a cardigan. Lena showered again, slower this time, letting the hot water work at the knots in her shoulders. The bruises on her ribs had darkened overnight, and the cut on her arm looked angry and red around the edges despite the antibiotic ointment. She dressed, ran her fingers through her wet hair, and ventured out into the hallway. The house was quieter during the day. She could hear voices somewhere below, the clink of dishes, classical music playing softly from hidden speakers. She followed the sounds down the main staircase, through the foyer, into what turned out to be a massive kitchen. Isabella was sitting at the island, wearing silk pajamas and eating what looked like oatmeal. She looked better than she had any right to, color in her cheeks, her hair pulled back in a loose braid, but there were shadows under her eyes that said she hadn't slept as well as Lena had. She looked up when Lena entered, and her face split into a genuine smile. "You're awake. I was starting to worry you'd sleep all day." "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to eat." "Don't apologize. Elena said you looked half dead when you went to bed." Isabella gestured to the stool beside her. "Sit. Coffee?" "Please." A woman Lena hadn't seen before, not Elena, younger, maybe 30, poured coffee into a mug and set it in front of her along with cream and sugar. Lena took it black, felt the caffeine hit her system like a benediction. "How are you feeling?" she asked Isabella. "Like I drowned and came back to life, which I guess I did." Isabella's hand went to her belly in a gesture that looked automatic. "The baby's fine. Dr. Castellano did an ultrasound last night. Heart rate is perfect. No distress." "That's good. That's a miracle." Isabella's voice went quiet. "If you hadn't been there..." "But I was." "Why?" Isabella leaned forward, her dark eyes searching Lena's face. "Roman told me you're running from something, that you could have just kept driving, so why didn't you?" Lena wrapped both hands around the coffee mug, felt the warmth seep into her palms. "I don't know. I saw the car go in and I just moved. Didn't think about it." "Most people would have thought about it, would have called 911 and waited. I'm not most people." "No," Isabella said softly. "You're not." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Isabella pushed a plate toward her. Toast, eggs, fruit that looked like it had been arranged by someone who actually cared about presentation. "Eat," Isabella said. "You look like you haven't had a real meal in days." She wasn't wrong. Lena had been living on gas station food and vending machine coffee since she'd left D.C. She ate slowly, trying not to look as desperate as she felt. "Roman wants to talk to you later," Isabella said. "He's on the phone with his lawyers right now. Something about the accident, making sure there's no investigation that leads back here." "Will there be?" "No. Roman's good at making problems disappear." Isabella's expression was matter-of-fact, like she was discussing the weather. "But he's cautious, especially when it comes to me. You're his sister. I'm his only family. Our parents died when I was 16. Car accident, ironically. Roman was 24, barely starting to build what he has now. He could have sent me away to boarding school, let someone else raise me. But he didn't. He kept me close, made sure I had everything I needed." She smiled slightly. "Sometimes I think he forgets I'm not 16 anymore. He seems protective." "That's a nice way of putting it." Isabella took a sip of her tea. "He's also suspicious. Of everyone. You should know that. He's trying to figure out if you're a threat." "I'm not." "I know that. But he doesn't. Not yet." Isabella's voice went softer. "Tell me about him. Your husband. The one you're running from." Lena's hands tightened on the mug. "What did Roman tell you?" "Just that you're married to a federal prosecutor who hurt you, that you left in the middle of the night." Isabella paused. "I know what it looks like when someone's been hit. I've seen it before. On other women. She stopped, seemed to reconsider. "I know the signs." Lena looked down at her hands. The bruises on her wrists had faded to yellow, but they were still visible if you knew what to look for. "His name is Adrian," she said quietly. "Adrian Cross. We met 6 years ago. He was charming, successful, said all the right things. I thought I was lucky." When did it start? 3 months after the wedding, I burned dinner. He grabbed my wrist, squeezed until I thought he'd break it, told me I was an embarrassment. The words felt like glass in her throat. Then he apologized, bought me flowers, said he'd been stressed, that it would never happen again. But it did. It got worse. He had rules about how I dressed, who I talked to, where I went. If I broke them, he'd... She stopped, swallowed hard. He was always careful, never hit me where anyone could see, never left marks that lasted more than a few days. Isabella's jaw was tight. Did you tell anyone? Who would I tell? His friends are prosecutors, judges, FBI agents. My parents are dead. I don't have siblings. The few friends I had before the marriage, he made sure they stopped calling. Lena's voice was flat now, emotionless. I was alone. Completely alone. And he liked it that way. Why did you finally leave? Lena thought about the USB drive hidden in her room, about the last conversation she'd had with Adrian, where he'd calmly explained that if she ever tried to leave him, he'd make sure no one ever found her body. Because I realized he was going to kill me eventually, she said. And I decided I'd rather die trying to escape than wait for him to do it. Isabella reached across the island, took Lena's hand. Her grip was warm, steady. You're safe here, she said. I promise you that. Roman might not trust you yet, but he trusts me, and I'm telling him you stay. You don't know me. I know you jumped into black water in the middle of a storm to save a stranger. I know you did CPR for 7 minutes straight even though you were freezing and hurt. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. Lena felt something crack in her chest. She'd been holding herself together through sheer force of will for so long that kindness felt dangerous, like it might break her completely. Thank you, she managed. Don't thank me yet. Living here, being part of this family, it's complicated. Roman's business isn't legal. I'm sure you figured that out. And being associated with us comes with risks. More risks than staying married to Adrian? Different risks. But yes, maybe less. Isabella squeezed her hand once more, then let go. We'll figure it out. One day at a time. The rest of the morning passed in a strange kind of limbo. Isabella showed her around the house, the library, the gym, the outdoor pool that looked like something from a resort magazine. They talked about small things, safe things. Isabella's pregnancy, the nursery she was planning, the names she was considering. It felt almost normal, like Lena was just visiting a friend, not hiding from a husband who wanted her dead in the home of a man who probably had bodies buried in his backyard. Around 2 in the afternoon, Elena found them in the library. Mr. Moretti would like to see you, she said to Lena. In his study. Isabella gave her an encouraging smile. Go, he's less scary than he looks. Lena wasn't sure she believed that, but she followed Elena anyway. Roman was at his desk this time, reading something on his laptop. He looked up when she entered, gestured to the same chair as last night. Sit. Lena sat. Roman closed the laptop, leaned back in his chair. I've been thinking about your situation. And? And I've made some calls, quiet calls, to people who owe me favors. Your husband is looking for you. He filed a missing persons report 2 days ago. Says you're mentally unstable, that he's worried you'll hurt yourself. Lena's stomach dropped. Of course he did. He's got every law enforcement agency on the East Coast looking for your car. The Honda is flagged in every database. You're lucky you made it to Miami before they started searching Florida highways. How long before they find me? They won't. I had someone move the Honda last night. It's in pieces in a chop shop in Homestead by now. As far as anyone knows, Lena Mercer disappeared somewhere between Atlanta and here. She should have been relieved. Instead, she felt trapped. Why are you helping me? Because Isabella wants me to, and because I pay attention when someone saves my sister's life. He paused. But I need to know I'm not bringing a problem into my house. So I'm going to ask you again. Is there anything else you're running from? Anything you haven't told me? The USB drive felt like it was burning through her chest. Tell him, part of her whispered. Tell him everything. He has the resources to figure out what's on it, maybe even use it against Adrian. But another part, the part that had survived 6 years with Adrian, knew that information was power, And giving it up meant giving up the only leverage she had. Just Adrian, she said. Roman studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded, though something in his expression said he didn't entirely believe her. Okay, here's how this works. You stay here, in the guest room. You don't leave the property without telling me or one of my men. You don't contact anyone from your old life. You don't use your real name outside this house. As far as the rest of the world is concerned, Lena Mercer doesn't exist anymore. For how long? As long as it takes for your husband to stop looking. Could be weeks, could be months. And what do I do in the meantime? Whatever Isabella needs. She's on bed rest for the next week. Doctor's orders. Keeps trying to do too much. You keep her company. Make sure she doesn't overdo it. He stood, moved to the window. Consider it repayment for room and board. I can do that. Good. He turned back to face her. One more thing. There are parts of this house you don't go into. The east wing, basement level. My office downstairs, the room with the red door. You see my men conducting business, you walk away. You hear things you shouldn't, you forget them. Understand? Yes. I'm serious about this, Lena. I'm giving you sanctuary because my sister asked me to. But if you become a liability, if you put her at risk in any way, that sanctuary ends. Permanently. The threat was clear. Lena nodded. I understand. I hope you do. His voice softened slightly. Isabella likes you. She doesn't like many people. That counts for something in this house. He dismissed her with a gesture, and Lena left the study feeling like she'd just passed a test she hadn't known she was taking. The next few days settled into an unexpected rhythm. Lena spent most of her time with Isabella, who turned out to be sharp, funny, and utterly uninterested in following doctor's orders about bed rest. They watched movies in Isabella's room, played cards, talked about everything except the obvious, that they were both living in a house built on violence and secrets. Isabella told her about growing up with Roman, about the brother who'd read her bedtime stories and taught her how to throw a punch before she was 10, about the business their father had run before he died and how Roman had taken it over and transformed it into something bigger, more dangerous, more profitable. He's not a bad person, Isabella said one afternoon. They were in the library, Isabella stretched out on the couch with her feet propped up, Lena sitting cross-legged in an armchair. I know how that sounds. I know what he does. But he takes care of people. The men who work for him, their families. He's loyal. And he never hurts anyone who doesn't have it coming. And the people who do have it coming? Isabella's expression didn't change. Then they should have made better choices. It was a window into a world Lena had only seen from the outside, through Adrian's prosecutions and trial notes. But living in it was different. The men who came and went from Roman's study weren't the monsters Adrian had described in his closing arguments. They were people. Flawed, dangerous people, but people nonetheless. Some of them even nodded to her in the hallways. A week passed, then 2. The cut on Lena's arm healed into a thin pink line. The bruises faded completely. She started sleeping through the night without dreaming about Adrian's hands around her throat. And slowly, carefully, she started to feel almost safe. She should have known it wouldn't last. She was in the kitchen one morning making coffee when one of Roman's men, a guy named Marcus who usually stood outside Roman's study, came in looking grim. Boss wants to see you, Bet, he said to Lena. Now. Isabella looked up from her breakfast, frowning. What's wrong? Don't know, but he's pissed. Lena's stomach knotted. She followed Marcus through the house, her mind racing through possibilities. Had Adrian found her? Had someone talked? Had Roman changed his mind about giving her sanctuary? Roman was in his study, standing behind his desk with his phone in his hand and an expression that could have cut glass. Close the door, he said. Marcus did, then left. Lena was alone with Roman and whatever had put that look on his face. I got a call this morning, Roman said, his voice deadly calm. From a friend in the D.C. Metro Police. Seems your husband has expanded his search. He's offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to your whereabouts. Claims you stole something from him. Something valuable. The USB drive. Lena's hand went to her chest before she could stop herself. Roman's eyes narrowed. You want to tell me what you took? I don't know what's on it. But you took something. There was no point in lying now. A USB drive. from his office. I grabbed it when I left. I thought maybe it was insurance, something to keep him from coming after me. And you didn't think to mention this before? I didn't know if I could trust you. Roman's laugh was harsh. You're living in my house, eating my food, under my protection, and you didn't know if you could trust me. You threatened to kill me if I became a liability, Lena shot back. Forgive me for being cautious. They stared at each other across the desk. Then Roman's expression shifted slightly, something that might have been respect flickering in his eyes. Where is it? In my room. Get it. Lena went upstairs, her heart pounding. When she came back down, she handed the drive to Roman without a word. He plugged it into his laptop, opened the files. Whatever he saw made his jaw tighten. Your husband, he said slowly, is a very stupid man. What is it? Roman turned the laptop around. The screen showed spreadsheets, email chains, scanned documents. Lena leaned closer, trying to make sense of it. Financial records, Roman said. Offshore accounts, wire transfers, communications with organized crime figures about case tampering, evidence suppression, witness intimidation. He scrolled through more files. Your husband isn't just corrupt. He's been taking money from the Bratva, Russian mob, to throw cases. And he's been documenting everything, probably as insurance, same reason you thought of. Lena felt cold. How much money? Millions. Over the last 4 years. Roman's expression was unreadable. This is enough to destroy him. End his career, put him in prison for the rest of his life. If it got into the right hands. It's evidence. It's a death sentence, for him, and for anyone he thinks might use it against him. Roman looked at her. He knows you have this. That's why he's looking so hard. Not because he loves you, because you can destroy him. The room felt too small. Lena sat down hard in the chair, her legs suddenly unsteady. He'll never stop looking, she said. No, he won't. So what do I do? Roman was quiet for a long moment, studying the screen. Then he closed the laptop, unplugged the drive, held it up. You let me handle it. How? Better if you don't know? He looked at her. But I can make him stop looking. I can make him forget you exist. It won't be pretty, and it won't be legal, but it'll be permanent. Lena thought about Adrian's face, the way he smiled when he was explaining how he'd ruin her life if she ever left. Thought about 6 years of fear, of walking on eggshells, of learning to make herself invisible just to survive. What do you want in return? Nothing. Consider it part of the debt I owe you for Isabella. He paused. But there is something you should know. If I do this, if I use this information the way I'm thinking, there's no going back. You'll be complicit in what happens to him. You'll have blood on your hands, even if you never pull the trigger yourself. I already have blood on my hands. I've had it since the day I married him. Roman nodded slowly. Okay then. Go back to Isabella. Stay with her. And let me take care of this. Lena stood, started toward the door, then stopped. Roman. Yeah? Thank you. His expression softened, just slightly. Thank Isabella. She's the one who made me promise to keep you safe. I'm just keeping my word. That evening, Lena told Isabella everything. They were in Isabella's room, the door closed, music playing to mask their conversation. Isabella listened without interrupting, her hand resting on her belly, her expression growing darker with every detail. When Lena finished, Isabella was quiet for a long moment. Roman will handle it, she finally said. He's good at handling problems like this. I know, that's what scares me. Why? Because I keep waiting for the cost. Nothing's free, especially not protection from someone like your brother. Isabella's laugh was soft. You think he's going to ask you to kill someone? Run drugs? Jesus, Lena, he's not a cartoon villain. Then what does he want? Maybe he just wants to help. Maybe he sees someone who got dealt a shit hand and he's trying to even the odds. Isabella shifted on the bed, wincing slightly. Or maybe he sees what I see. Which is? Someone strong enough to survive 6 years with a monster. Someone brave enough to jump into a bay to save a stranger. Someone who could be useful to have around. Isabella's expression turned serious. This family, Lena, we take care of our own. And like it or not, you're ours now. At least until you decide you don't want to be. Lena felt that crack in her chest again, wider this time. I don't know how to be part of a family, she said quietly. Adrian made sure I forgot. Then you'll learn. We've got time. Isabella smiled. Besides, I need someone around who isn't terrified of Roman. It gets boring being the only person who'll tell him when he's being an ass. Despite everything, Lena laughed. It felt strange, rusty from disuse, but real. I'll work on it, she said. That night, lying in the guest room that was starting to feel less like a cell and more like a refuge, Lena thought about the choice she'd made. Giving the drive to Roman meant trusting him with her life in a way she'd never trusted anyone. It meant accepting that her future was now tied to his family, for better or worse. It should have terrified her. Instead, for the first time since she'd climbed out that bedroom window in D.C., she felt something that might have been hope. 3 weeks after Lena handed over the USB drive, Roman called her into his study again. This time Isabella came too, moving slowly, one hand pressed against her lower back. She was 7 months along now, her belly prominent enough that she'd stopped trying to hide it under oversized shirts. Sit, Roman said, but his tone was different than before. Less interrogation, more briefing. They sat. Lena's hands were clenched in her lap, her heart doing that thing where it beat too fast and too hard at the same time. Your husband made a mistake, Roman said without preamble. A big one. He tried to use his connections to track you through credit card activity, phone records, the usual channels. But he also reached out to some people he shouldn't have. What people? Lena asked. Bratva contacts. Russians he's been working with. Asked them to put word out in their network, see if anyone had seen you. Roman's expression was grim. That was stupid, because now they know he's desperate, and desperate men make poor partners. What does that mean for me? It means I had a conversation with Dmitry Volkov. He runs the Bratva operations in the southeast, showed him what was on that drive. He was very interested to learn that his favorite federal prosecutor has been keeping detailed records of their business arrangements. Lena's stomach dropped. You gave them the files? Copies. I kept the originals. Insurance for both of us. Roman leaned back in his chair. Volkov is now having his own conversation with your husband, explaining that his services are no longer needed and that any further attempts to find you will be taken as a hostile act against their organization. Will Adrian listen? He'll listen, because the alternative is ending up in the Potomac with a bullet in his head. Roman's voice was matter-of-fact. Volkov doesn't make threats he doesn't keep. Isabella reached over, took Lena's hand. It's over. Adrian can't come after you anymore. Not without starting a war he can't win. Lena wanted to believe it, wanted to feel relief, safety, freedom. Instead, she felt numb, like her body hadn't caught up with the information her brain was processing. What about the evidence? She asked. The corruption? The case tampering? Doesn't someone need to do something about it? Roman finished. Eventually, but not yet. Right now, that evidence is more useful as leverage. Keeps Adrian in line, keeps Volkov cooperative. Everyone wins. Except the people Adrian put in prison on false charges. Roman's eyes were steady on hers. You want me to send those files to the FBI? To Internal Affairs? I can do that. But understand what happens next. Adrian goes down, takes a lot of people with him. Some of them are dirty, like him. Some of them aren't. Either way, there's an investigation, federal. They'll want to know where the evidence came from. They'll want to talk to you. I can handle that. Can you? Because once you step into that spotlight, you're exposed. Every news outlet in the country will know your name, your face, your story. Adrian's defense team will destroy you on the stand. They'll paint you as a scorned wife, a liar, mentally unstable. And even if you survive that, even if he goes to prison, you'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder wondering if one of his friends decided to settle the score. The truth of it hit her like cold water. She'd been so focused on escaping Adrian that she hadn't thought about what came after. About the cost of justice versus the cost of survival. So I just let him get away with it. For now, Isabella said quietly. You let him think he got away with it. But Roman still has the evidence. And when the time is right, when you're stronger and further away from all of this, then you decide what to do with it. Lena looked at both of them. Brother and sister, bound by something deeper than blood. They understood survival in ways she was only beginning to learn. "Okay," she said. "Okay," Roman nodded. "Good. Now there's something else. You can't keep hiding in this house forever. You need an identity, a real one. I have someone who can make that happen. New name, new papers, the works. It'll take a few weeks, but when it's done, Lena Mercer is gone for good." "Who do I become?" "That's up to you. Pick a name. Something you can remember, something that feels right. Think about it. Let me know." After they left Roman's study, Isabella insisted on showing Lena the nursery. It was on the second floor, painted a soft yellow, with a crib that looked like it cost more than Lena's car had. Isabella moved around the room slowly, touching things, rearranging stuffed animals that didn't need rearranging. "I'm scared," she said suddenly. Lena looked up from the bookshelf she'd been examining. "Of what?" "Being a mother, doing it wrong, turning into—" She stopped, her jaw tight. "Turning into what?" Isabella sat down in the rocking chair by the window, one hand on her belly. "Our mother wasn't a good person. She was cold, distant. When she drank, which was often, she got mean. Roman protected me from most of it, but I still remember. I remember feeling like I was never good enough, never what she wanted." "You're not her," Lena said. "How do you know?" "Because you're already worried about it. Bad parents don't worry. They just hurt their kids and tell themselves they deserve it." Lena came over, knelt beside the chair. "You're going to be a good mom, I can tell. You barely know me. Yeah, I know you fought to stay conscious after you nearly drowned because you were worried about your baby. I know you convinced your terrifying older brother to take in a complete stranger. I know you sit in here every day talking to someone who can't even hear you yet, telling him about the world he's going to be born into." Lena smiled slightly. "Trust me, you're going to be fine." Isabella's eyes were wet. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being here. For not treating me like I'm fragile." "Everyone else does. Even Roman. They see the belly and they stop seeing me." "I see you," Lena said, "and you're the strongest person I've met in a long time." They sat in the nursery for a while longer, talking about small things. Baby names, parenting books Isabella had read, the terror of keeping another human alive. It felt normal in a way Lena hadn't experienced in years, like having a friend, like mattering to someone who wasn't trying to control her. That evening, sitting in her room with a notebook and pen, Lena thought about names, about who she wanted to be now that she wasn't Adrian's wife anymore. She wrote down options, crossed them out, started over. Finally, she settled on one: Elena Reed. Close enough to Lena that she'd respond to it naturally, but different enough that it felt like a fresh start. Reed because it sounded solid, ordinary, forgettable. She told Roman the next morning. He nodded, made a note on his phone, said his guy would have everything ready in 2 weeks. 2 weeks turned into 3, then 4. Lena fell into the rhythm of the house. She spent her mornings with Isabella, her afternoons reading in the library or walking the grounds with Elena, the housekeeper, who turned out to have a wicked sense of humor and opinions on everything. She learned the names of Roman's men, learned which ones would nod back when she said hello and which ones just stared through her like she was furniture. She learned that Marcus, the guy who'd fetched her that day Roman found out about the USB drive, had a daughter in college studying engineering. That Carlo, who stood outside the East Wing and never smiled, sent half his paycheck to his mother in Sicily every month. That Vincent, the driver, had worked for Roman's father before Roman took over, and was loyal in the way only old family retainers could be. These were dangerous men. She knew that. But they were also just men. Complicated. Human. Not so different from anyone else trying to make a living and take care of their families. Isabella went into false labor one night, and the whole house erupted into controlled chaos. Roman practically carried her to the car, his face pale under his tan, while Dr. Castellano talked him down over the phone. Lena rode with them to the hospital, held Isabella's hand while they ran tests, told her stupid stories to keep her distracted until the doctor confirmed it was just Braxton Hicks contractions and sent them home. "You're good at this," Isabella said in the car on the way back. She was exhausted, leaning against Lena's shoulder. "The calm thing. You don't panic." "I learned how to stay calm during bad situations," Lena said quietly. "It was a survival skill. Well, I'm grateful for it. Roman was useless. Did you see his face? Lena glanced at the front seat where Roman was sitting rigid, his hands clenched on his thighs. I think he was scared. Terrified, Roman said without turning around. And I can hear you both. Good, Isabella said. You should know that you're terrible in emergencies. I run a criminal organization. I'm excellent in emergencies. You run a criminal organization where people do what you say or they get shot. Very different from a pregnant woman having contractions. Despite everything, Lena smiled. This was what family sounded like. Bickering and love wrapped up together so tightly you couldn't separate them. The new identity papers arrived on a Tuesday. Roman called Lena into his study, handed her a manila envelope. Inside was everything: driver's license, birth certificate, social security card, even a passport. All with her new name. Elena Reed, born in Portland, Oregon. 28 years old, no criminal record, no marriage license, no connection to Adrian Cross whatsoever. It's clean, Roman said. My guy is the best. These will hold up to any background check short of federal law enforcement. Lena stared at the license, at the photo they'd taken of her last week. She looked different than she had in her old pictures. Healthier, less afraid, like someone who might actually have a future. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me yet. Having papers doesn't mean you're free. It just means you can start building a new life. The rest is up to you. What if I want to stay here? Keep helping with Isabella? Roman was quiet for a moment. Is that what you want? To be a housekeeper? A nanny? I want to be useful. I want to matter to someone. You matter to Isabella. She's made that clear. He paused. And you've been good for her. She's less stressed with you around, laughs more. So if you want to stay, you stay. But understand what that means. You'll be part of this household, part of this family, which means you follow the rules, you keep your mouth shut about what you see, and you accept that the life you're building is tied to mine. I understand. I hope so. Because if you betray this family, there won't be a warning. There won't be a second chance. You'll just disappear and no one will ever find you. He said it calmly, the same way he'd talk about the weather. And Lena believed him completely. I won't betray you, she said. Good. Then welcome to the family, Elena Reed. The name sounded strange in her own ears, but also right, like putting on clothes that actually fit after years of wearing someone else's. 3 days later, everything went to hell. It started with a phone call. Roman got it during dinner, Isabella, Lena, and him eating together in the dining room like they'd started doing most nights. He looked at the screen, his expression darkening. I need to take this, he said, and left the room. He didn't come back. After 20 minutes, Isabella started to worry. Something's wrong. He wouldn't just leave like that. Lena was inclined to agree. She'd seen Roman handle business calls before. They lasted 5 minutes, maybe 10. Never this long. They were debating whether to check on him when Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face grim. Miss Isabella, I need you to go to your room. Now. What's happening? Can't say, but the boss wants you upstairs and locked in until he gives the all clear. Marcus, now Miss Isabella, please. The tone left no room for argument. Isabella stood, and Lena stood with her. They went upstairs together, Isabella moving slower now, one hand pressed to her belly, like she could protect the baby through sheer force of will. In Isabella's room they waited. Lena locked the door, checked the windows. Everything looked normal outside. The grounds were quiet, the security lights casting long shadows across the lawn. This is about Adrian, isn't it? Isabella said. She was sitting on the bed, her face pale. Something happened. We don't know that. What else could it be? Roman's been waiting for the other shoe to drop since he made that deal with Volkov. He never trusted that it would hold. Lena's stomach was in knots. She wanted to believe Roman had it handled, that whatever was happening downstairs was just business as usual. But the look on Marcus's face had been wrong, scared, and men like Marcus didn't scare easily. An hour passed, then 2. Isabella tried calling Roman's phone. It went straight to voicemail. Something's really wrong, Isabella said. Her hands were shaking. He always answers when I call. Always. Lena was about to respond when she heard it. A sound from somewhere below. Not quite a shout, Not quite a crash, just wrong. Then footsteps in the hallway. Fast, heavy. Someone tried the door handle. When it didn't open, they knocked hard. "Miss Isabella, it's Carlo. I need you to open up." Isabella moved toward the door, but Lena grabbed her arm. "Don't," she whispered. "Something's off." "It's Carlo. He's been with us for years. Then why isn't he using the key? All of Roman's men have keys to every room in this house. Why is he asking you to open it?" Isabella froze. The knocking came again, harder this time. "Miss Isabella, please, the boss is asking for you." "Where is he?" Isabella called through the door. A pause. Too long. "Downstairs. In his study. He needs to talk to you about the baby." Lena moved to the window, looked down. There were vehicles in the driveway, one she didn't recognize, and men moving through the grounds with flashlights and weapons. "We need to go," she said. "Now." "Go where?" "We're on the second floor." "The balcony. It connects to the next room, doesn't it?" Isabella nodded, her eyes wide. "The guest room. Your room." They moved fast. Out onto the balcony, across to Lena's room, thankfully unlocked. Behind them, they heard the door to Isabella's room crash open, Carlo's voice shouting something angry. "They're going to come here next," Isabella said. She was breathing hard, one hand pressed to her belly, her face twisted with pain. "Are you—" False contractions again. "Stress. I'm okay." But she didn't look okay. She looked terrified. Lena grabbed her backpack. Habit made her keep it packed, ready to run, and looked around wildly for options. The door wouldn't hold long. The windows were too high to jump from safely, especially with Isabella pregnant. Then she remembered. The east wing. The part of the house Roman had told her never to enter. If there was anywhere with a way out that these people might not know about, it would be there. "Come on," she said, taking Isabella's hand. They went into the hallway. It was empty, but Lena could hear shouting from multiple directions now. The house was under attack, real, actual attack, and Roman was nowhere to be seen. They made it to the east wing door, locked. Lena tried to remember everything she'd learned from action movies, from crime shows. She needed something to pick it with, or... Isabella pushed past her, typed a code into the keypad beside the door. It clicked open. "Roman gave me the code years ago," she said, "for emergencies." This definitely qualified. Inside, the east wing was darker than the rest of the house. Narrower hallways, less expensive finishes. This was the working part of the building, where the pretty facade dropped away. They moved through it quickly, Isabella directing them with familiarity that surprised Lena. Past offices, a room full of filing cabinets, another room that was clearly an armory, guns on the walls, ammunition boxes stacked on shelves. "There's a tunnel," Isabella said. Her voice was tight with pain. "From the basement. It leads to a safe house about half a mile away. Roman built it years ago, in case we ever needed to evacuate fast. Can you make it?" "I have to." They found the stairs, started down. Behind them, Lena heard footsteps entering the east wing, shouting. Someone had figured out where they'd gone. The basement was cold, concrete and exposed pipes. Isabella led them to a door hidden behind a storage shelf. The tunnel beyond was narrow, lit by emergency lights, sloping gently upward. They were maybe 50 feet in when Isabella gasped and doubled over. "What's wrong?" "Not false this time," Isabella managed. "Real. The baby, it's too early." "Tell that to him. She straightened up, breathing hard. "We have to keep going. If they catch us..." She didn't finish. Didn't need to. Lena wrapped an arm around her waist, took as much of her weight as she could, and they kept moving. The tunnel felt endless. Every few feet, Isabella had to stop, had to breathe through another contraction. And behind them, getting closer, Lena could hear voices. They were being followed. Finally, they reached the end, a metal door with a wheel lock, like something from a submarine. Lena spun it, felt it give, pulled the door open. They stumbled out into what looked like the garage of a small house. Old boxes stacked against the walls, a car under a tarp, and sitting on a workbench lit by a single bare bulb, a cell phone. Lena grabbed it, dialed Roman's number. It rang, and... "Who is this?" Roman's voice, clipped and dangerous. "It's me. Lena. I'm with Isabella. We're in the safe house. Your house is under attack. We barely got out." A string of cursing in Italian. "Is she hurt?" "She's in labor, real labor." "How far apart are the contractions?" Lena looked at Isabella, who held up 5 fingers. 5 minutes. "Okay. Okay. Listen to me carefully. There's a gun in the glove compartment of the car. Get it. Lock yourselves in the upstairs bathroom. Do not open the door for anyone except me or Marcus. I'm coming. 20 minutes. Can you hold for 20 minutes? Yes. Good. And Lena? If anyone comes through that door who isn't me, you shoot them. You understand? You shoot them." The line went dead. Lena found the gun, checked the magazine the way Adrian's security consultant had once shown her during a dinner party demonstration. Loaded, safety on. She flicked it off. Isabella was leaning against the car, breathing through another contraction. When it passed, she looked at Lena with something like wonder. "You know how to use that?" "I guess we're about to find out." They made it upstairs. The house was small, sparsely furnished, clearly maintained but not lived in. The bathroom had a lock on the door and no windows. They shut themselves inside, Lena positioning herself between Isabella and the door. 5 minutes passed. 10. Isabella's contractions were getting closer together. 4 minutes now. Then 3.5. "He's coming," she said. "The baby. He's really coming. Roman will be here soon." "What if he's not?" Then Lena heard it. The sound of the garage door opening, footsteps on the stairs. Not running, walking, casual. Like whoever it was knew exactly where they were and wasn't worried about resistance. The footsteps stopped outside the bathroom door. A knock. 3 times. Then a voice that made Lena's entire body go cold. "Lena," Adrian said through the door. "I know you're in there, and I think we need to talk." Lena's hands tightened on the gun. Behind her, Isabella made a small sound, part gasp, part moan, as another contraction hit. "I'm not interested in talking," Lena called through the door. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "That's unfortunate, because I came a long way to find you." Adrian's tone was conversational, almost pleasant, the same voice he used with juries. "And I brought friends. You remember Dmitry Volkov, don't you? Well, you don't, actually. But I've been working with him for years. Turns out when you show someone proof that their business partner has been documenting their crimes, they get very motivated to solve that problem." Lena's stomach dropped. "Roman warned him, showed him the files." "Yes, he did. And Dmitry was furious enough to make a deal with me instead. I help him eliminate the Moretti problem. He helps me recover my stolen property and my runaway wife." A pause. "It's really quite elegant when you think about it. You teamed up with the same people who were supposed to keep you away from me." "I'm a prosecutor, Lena. I make deals. It's what I do." His voice hardened slightly. "Now open the door. We can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. But either way, you're coming out." Isabella grabbed Lena's arm, whispered urgently, "Roman's coming. We just need to stall." Lena nodded. "What happened to Roman?" she called out. "Roman Moretti is currently having a very bad night. My new associates are dealing with him as we speak, along with anyone foolish enough to stand with him." Adrian sounded pleased with himself. "By morning, the Moretti organization will be history, and you and I will be on a plane back to D.C., where you'll face charges for theft, fraud, and whatever else I decide to add. I'll tell them everything, about the corruption, the bribes, the cases you threw." Adrian laughed. It was a sound Lena knew too well, the laugh that meant he'd already won and was just waiting for her to figure it out. "Who's going to believe you, a woman with a documented history of mental instability, married to a federal prosecutor with an impeccable reputation? You'll sound insane. And if by some miracle someone does investigate, well," his voice dropped lower, "there won't be any evidence left. The USB drive will disappear, along with anyone who might corroborate your story." Behind the door, Lena heard other voices now, men talking in Russian, footsteps moving through the house. "I'm going to count to 10, Adrian said. "Then my friends are going to come through that door whether you like it or not. And trust me, they won't be gentle. So I suggest you make this easy on yourself." Isabella was breathing hard, sweat beading on her forehead. "I can't. Lena, the baby. I know. Lena's mind was racing. The gun had maybe 12 rounds. There were at least 3 men out there, probably more. Roman was 20 minutes away. They needed more time. 1, Adrian counted. Lena looked around the bathroom. Small window above the toilet, too high and too small for Isabella to fit through. Tile floor, porcelain fixtures, nothing useful. 2. There's a drain, Isabella gasped, in the floor, for overflow. Leads to the main sewer line. Roman showed me once, said if we ever got trapped in here. 3. Lena found it, half hidden under the bath mat. A circular grate maybe 8 inches across. Definitely not big enough for a person, but 4. She pulled out her phone, the one Roman had given her, set it to record, stuffed it halfway down the drain, wedged it in place with the bath mat. 5. The USB drive, Isabella whispered. Do you still have it? Lena shook her head. Roman has it, the original, but She stopped, thinking fast. She'd made a copy. Days ago, paranoid habit left over from living with Adrian. Burned it to a disk and hidden it in her room. A room that was currently in a house under attack. 6. Isabella, listen to me. If something happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you. If something happens, you tell Roman where I hid that disk. Behind the loose baseboard in my closet. He needs to know. 7. Lena, promise me. 8. I promise, Isabella said, tears streaming down her face. 9. Lena checked the gun one more time. 12 rounds. She was a decent shot. Adrian had made her learn, said a prosecutor's wife, needed to know how to defend herself. The irony wasn't lost on her. 10. The door exploded inward. Not from a key or even from being kicked. They'd used something heavy, maybe a battering ram. It slammed open, and 2 men rushed in, big men with guns raised and expressions that said they'd done this 1,000 times before. Lena fired. The recoil shocked through her arms. The first man went down, blood spreading across his chest. The second one got a shot off. The bullet went wide, punched through the wall beside Isabella's head, and then Lena fired again. He dropped. For a second, there was just ringing silence and the smell of gunpowder. Then Adrian stepped into the doorway. He had a gun too, pointed right at Lena. Behind him, 2 more men, weapons ready. That was stupid, Adrian said calmly. Those were Dimitri's men. He's not going to be happy you killed them. Good, Lena said. The gun in her hands was shaking now, adrenaline crashing through her system. I hope he's furious. Adrian's eyes flicked to Isabella, taking in her pale face and the obvious signs of labor. You're having the baby. How inconvenient. Leave her alone, Lena said. This is between you and me. True. But she's leverage. The Moretti baby. I imagine Roman would do quite a lot to keep his nephew safe. Adrian smiled. Put the gun down, Lena. No. I'll shoot her, right now, in front of you. Is that what you want? Lena's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the gun steady. Behind her, Isabella was gasping through another contraction, and Adrian stood there with that same calm expression, the one he wore when he was explaining why she'd earned whatever punishment he had planned. She'd run so far, changed her name, her life, everything, and here he was anyway, proving that some nightmares you couldn't escape, unless you stopped running. Okay, Lena said. She lowered the gun. Not all the way down, but enough that it wasn't pointed at Adrian anymore. Okay, you win. I always do. Adrian gestured to one of the men behind him. Take her weapon. The man moved forward cautiously. He was maybe 6 feet from Lena when she saw it. A flicker of movement in the doorway behind Adrian. A shadow that didn't belong. She kept her eyes on Adrian, didn't let them betray what she'd seen. The man reached for her gun. Lena let him take it. Let him grab her arm, start to pull her toward the door. Let Adrian smile that smile that said he'd already won. Then Marcus stepped out of the shadows behind Adrian and put a bullet through the head of the man holding Lena. Everything happened at once. The other Russian spun, fired at Marcus. Marcus dropped, rolled, came up shooting. Adrian dove sideways, his gun swinging toward Isabella. Lena didn't think. She grabbed the dead man's weapon as he fell, brought it up, and fired. The shot caught Adrian in the shoulder. He went down hard, his gun skittering across the tile floor. Lena kicked it away, kept her weapon trained on him while Marcus finished with the other Russian. Then it was over. 4 bodies, blood everywhere. The bathroom looked like a crime scene, which Lena supposed it was. Adrian was on his back, clutching his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. He looked up at Lena with an expression she'd never seen before. Not anger, not hate. Fear. "You shot me," he said, like he couldn't quite believe it. "Yes. You shot me. I heard you the first time." Lena's hands were steady now. The shaking had stopped. Everything felt very clear, very simple. "Marcus, where's Roman?" "On his way. 3 minutes out." Marcus was breathing hard, checking himself for injuries. "He sent me ahead when he heard shooting." "Is Isabella—" A groan from behind them. Lena turned. Isabella was doubled over, both hands on the sink, her face twisted in agony. "The baby's coming," she gasped. "Right now. He's coming right now. We need to get you to a hospital. There's no time." Isabella's laugh was half sob. "I can feel him. He's— Oh, Christ." Marcus swore in Italian. "I'll call for an ambulance." "They won't get here in time." Lena looked at Marcus, then at Isabella, then at the impossible situation they were in. A woman giving birth. 4 dead men. Adrian bleeding on the floor. And somewhere outside, probably more Russians and a war that wasn't over yet. She made a decision. "Marcus, get Adrian out of here. Lock him in the basement or a closet, I don't care. Just make sure he can't get away. Then call Roman, tell him we need an ambulance and that Isabella's in active labor." "Well, what are you going to do?" "I'm going to deliver a baby." She saw his expression. "I worked as a nurse's aide in college. I know the basics. We don't have a choice." Marcus grabbed Adrian by his good arm, hauled him to his feet. Adrian tried to resist, but he was weak from blood loss and shock. "This isn't over," he said to Lena. "You think killing me solves anything? I have friends, associates. They'll come for you. Then they can get in line behind everyone else." Lena's voice was flat. "Get him out of here, Marcus." After they left, Lena turned back to Isabella. "Okay, we're doing this. Tell me what you need." "I need drugs. I need an epidural. I need—" Isabella cried out as another contraction hit. "I need this to not be happening in a bathroom with dead bodies. I can't help with most of that, but I can help you breathe, and I can catch your baby when he decides to show up." Lena helped her sit on the floor, her back against the tub. "Come on. You're the strongest person I know. You can do this." "I'm terrified." "Me too, but we're doing it anyway." The next 15 minutes were the longest of Lena's life. Isabella's contractions were coming fast now, barely a minute apart. Lena did what she could, helped her breathe, talked her through the pain, checked her progress with shaking hands and a prayer that she remembered enough from her clinical rotations. She heard sirens in the distance, getting closer. Roman's voice outside shouting orders. But all of that felt far away, less real than the woman gasping and crying in front of her, less real than the impossible task of helping a baby enter a world that was currently on fire. "I can see his head," Lena said. "Isabella, you're almost there. One more push." "I can't." "Yes, you can. Come on, give me one more." Isabella screamed, a sound that was rage and pain and determination all mixed together. And then suddenly there was a baby, tiny and slick and perfect, crying his lungs out in Lena's hands. She'd never felt anything like it. The weight of him, the realness. This human being who hadn't existed 10 seconds ago and now did, who was alive and screaming and absolutely furious about being born. "You have a son," Lena said, her voice cracking. "Isabella, you have a son." She placed him on Isabella's chest. Isabella's hands came up immediately, cradling him, her tears mixing with sweat and exhaustion, and something that looked like wonder. "He's here," Isabella whispered. "He's really here." The door burst open. Roman came through like he was expecting a war zone, which, fair enough, it kind of was, and then stopped dead when he saw his sister holding a newborn baby. "We couldn't wait," Lena said. Roman's expression went through about 6 different emotions in 3 seconds. Then he was on his knees beside Isabella, staring at his nephew with something close to awe. He's perfect," Isabella said. 10 fingers, 10 toes, excellent lungs. I already checked." Paramedics crowded in then, professionals taking over, checking the baby and Isabella with efficient calm. They clamped and cut the umbilical cord, wrapped the baby in blankets, started moving Isabella onto a stretcher. "The mother and baby are stable," one of them said to Roman. "But we need to get them to the hospital. She needs to be checked properly, and the baby needs to be examined by a pediatrician." "Take them," Roman said. "Whatever they need. Best care available." As they were wheeling Isabella out, she grabbed Lena's hand. "Thank you. For everything. For—" Her voice broke. "I wouldn't have made it without you." "Yes, you would have. You're stronger than you know." "So are you." Isabella squeezed her hand once more, then let go. After they left, Lena sat down hard on the bathroom floor, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. Her clothes were covered in blood, some of it from the men she'd shot, some from Isabella. All of it making her feel sick now that the adrenaline was wearing off. Roman appeared in the doorway. He looked at the bodies, at the blood, at Lena sitting in the middle of it all. "Marcus told me what happened," he said. "That Adrian showed up with Dimitri's men, that you held them off until we got here." "I shot 2 people," Lena said. Her voice sounded strange, distant. "I killed them. You protected my sister and my nephew. That's what matters." "Is it?" She looked up at him. "Because I keep thinking about those men, about the fact that they're dead because of me, because of choices I made, starting with the choice to take that USB drive." Roman crouched down in front of her. "Those men were here to kill you, to kill Isabella and kidnap my nephew. You did what you had to do to survive. That's not murder. That's self-defense." "Adrian's still alive. For now. I have him downstairs. Marcus stopped the bleeding, but he needs a hospital." Roman's expression was unreadable. "I could make him disappear, right now. No one would ever find him. Is that what you want?" Lena thought about it, really thought about it. How easy it would be to say yes, to let Roman do what he did best and remove the problem permanently. But that would make her like Adrian, like all the people who'd hurt her over the years. And she'd fought too hard to become someone different to throw it away now. "No," she said. "I want him alive. I want him to stand trial for everything he's done. I want the world to see who he really is. That's a risk. He has friends, resources." "I know, but it's the right thing." She met Roman's eyes. "You still have the USB drive?" "Hidden, safe. And the copy I made?" "Marcus already retrieved it from your room." Roman pulled a disc from his pocket. "This one?" Lena nodded. "Those 2 pieces of evidence together? They'll destroy him. Not just his career, his reputation, his freedom, everything. He'll die in prison and everyone will know why." Roman studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Okay, we do it your way, but understand what that means. You'll have to testify. You'll have to stand up in court and tell your story in front of judges, lawyers, journalists. Adrian's defense team will come after you with everything they have. Let them. I'm done being afraid." She stood up, her legs shaky but solid. "I'm done running. I'm done letting him win. Then we'll make sure he loses." Roman held out his hand. "Come on, let's get you cleaned up, and then we have work to do." The next few hours were a blur. Police showed up at the house. Not regular police, ones Roman knew, ones who asked the right questions and accepted the right answers. The bodies were removed. The blood was cleaned up. Statements were taken, carefully edited to tell the story Roman wanted told. By the time the sun rose, the official version went like this. Adrian Cross, a federal prosecutor from D.C., had orchestrated an attack on Roman Moretti's property using Russian organized crime figures. He'd been attempting to kidnap his estranged wife and hold her hostage. Fortunately, Mr. Moretti's security had responded quickly, neutralizing the threat. Mr. Cross had been shot while resisting and was now in custody, awaiting charges. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was close enough. Lena sat in Roman's study, wrapped in a blanket someone had given her, watching the sun come up through the windows. She felt empty, wrung out, but also something else. Something that might have been peace. The door opened. Roman came in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one. "Isabella's doing well," he said. "The baby too. They're keeping them for observation, but the doctors say they're both healthy. She wants to see you." "I look like hell." "She won't care." He sat down across from her. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay? What do you want to happen to Adrian? Not what you think I want to hear, not what sounds noble. What do you actually want? Lena took a sip of coffee. It was terrible, burned and bitter. She drank it anyway. I want him to suffer, she said quietly. I want him to know what it feels like to be powerless, to have everything taken away, to wake up every day knowing he lost, and I won. She met Roman's eyes. But I don't want to kill him, because then he'd be dead, and I'd have to live with that. And I've spent 6 years letting him determine who I am. I'm not giving him that power anymore. Roman nodded slowly. That's fair. And smart. He paused. There's something you should know. I had my lawyers look into his situation. The people he worked with, the evidence on those drives. If we play this right, we can bring down half of Dimitri's operation along with Adrian. Take out a major crime organization and a corrupt prosecutor in one move. And you're okay with that? Helping to destroy people in your world? Dimitri came into my house, threatened my sister, worked with Adrian Cross to try to take everything from me. Roman's voice was cold. He's not in my world anymore. He's just a problem to be solved. Lena understood. This was what justice looked like in Roman's life. Not courtrooms and lawyers, just consequences, delivered directly. What do you need from me? She asked. Your testimony. The truth about Adrian, about what he did to you, about the evidence you found, and your willingness to go into witness protection after it's over. You give us that, we make sure Adrian and everyone he worked with goes down permanently. Witness protection means leaving you, Isabella, the baby, the life I was starting to build here. It means staying alive, Roman said. Adrian's not the only dangerous person you've crossed. And even in prison, people like him find ways to reach out. You testify, you become a target. Witness protection gives you a chance to disappear completely. Start over for real this time. The thought made her chest ache. She'd just found a place where she mattered, people who cared whether she lived or died. And now she had to leave it all behind. But she'd known from the beginning that this was temporary, that eventually she'd have to move on. Okay, she said. I'll do it. But I want to say goodbye first. To Isabella. To the baby. Of course. Roman stood. Get some rest. We'll drive to the hospital this afternoon. He started toward the door, then stopped, looked back. You saved my sister's life twice, he said. Once in that bay, once in that bathroom. I won't forget that, ever. So even though you're going into protection, even though you'll have a new name in a new place, you need to know something. Your family, and family can always come home. After he left, Lena sat alone in the study and let herself cry. For everything she was losing, for everything she'd survived, for the person she used to be and the person she was becoming. When the tears finally stopped, she felt lighter, like she'd put down a weight she'd been carrying for so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. She was going to testify, going to face Adrian in court, going to tell the truth in front of the world. And then she was going to disappear. Not because she was running, but because she was choosing a future where Adrian's shadow couldn't reach her anymore. That afternoon, they went to the hospital. Isabella was in a private room, the baby sleeping in her arms. She looked exhausted and radiant all at once. There she is, Isabella said when Lena walked in. The woman who delivered my son in a bathroom during a gunfight. It wasn't ideal, Lena admitted. It was perfect. Because we both survived, and he's here. She looked down at the baby, her expression soft. We decided on a name. Do you want to know what it is? Of course. Matteo. It means gift. Because that's what he is. A gift I almost didn't get to have. Isabella looked up at Lena. And his middle name is Reed, after the woman who saved both our lives. Lena's throat closed up completely. Isabella? I know you're leaving. Roman told me about the testimony, about witness protection. I get it, I do. Isabella's eyes were wet. But I want you to know that you'll always be part of this family. Always. And when Matteo is old enough to understand, I'm going to tell him about the brave woman who helped bring him into the world. I don't feel brave. Then you're not paying attention. Isabella held out her free hand. Come here, hold him. He should know his Aunt Lena before she goes. Lena took the baby carefully. He was so small, so impossibly fragile, but his grip was strong when his tiny hand wrapped around her finger, and his eyes, dark like Isabella's, seemed to look right through her. "Hello, Matteo," she whispered. "I'm sorry I have to go, but you're going to have an amazing life. You have a mother who loves you and an uncle who'd burn the world down to keep you safe. You're going to be okay." The baby made a small sound, almost like agreement. Behind her, Roman appeared in the doorway. "We need to go. The lawyers are waiting." Lena handed Matteo back to Isabella, memorizing this moment. The three of them in this room. The feeling of being part of something bigger than herself. "Thank you," she told Isabella, "for everything. For seeing me when I was invisible. For making me believe I deserved better." "Thank yourself," Isabella said. "You're the one who jumped into that water. You're the one who fought back. I just gave you a safe place to remember who you are." In the car on the way to Roman's lawyer's office, Lena stared out the window at Miami passing by. She'd been here less than 2 months, but it felt like a lifetime. Like she'd lived a dozen different versions of herself in that span. Lena Mercer, the terrified wife who'd run in the middle of the night. Elena Reed, the woman who'd found temporary sanctuary. And now whoever she'd be next. A new name in a new city, carrying the weight of her testimony and the knowledge that she'd finally chosen herself over fear. "You ready for this?" Roman asked. Lena thought about Adrian's face when she'd shot him, about the years of fear he'd inflicted, about the evidence that would destroy him and everyone he'd worked with. "Yes," she said, "I'm ready." The lawyer's office occupied the top floor of a building overlooking Biscayne Bay. Floor-to-ceiling windows, leather chairs that probably cost more than most people's cars. The kind of place where justice was expensive and came with a price tag most people couldn't afford. Roman's lead attorney was a woman named Margaret Chen, mid-50s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of presence that said she'd won more cases than most lawyers ever tried. She shook Lena's hand with a grip that was firm but not aggressive. "Ms. Mercer," she said, "or should I say Ms. Reed? Roman tells me you prefer Elena now." "Either is fine. I'm getting used to answering to both." "Well, for the purposes of the legal proceedings, we'll need to use your legal name, Lena Mercer. The prosecutors will want to establish your identity clearly." Margaret gestured to the conference table. "Please, sit. We have a lot to cover." The next 3 hours were brutal. Margaret walked Lena through every detail of her marriage to Adrian, every incident of abuse, every threat, every moment of fear. She took notes on a legal pad, occasionally asking questions that cut right to the bone. "When he broke your wrist in the 2nd year of marriage, did you seek medical treatment?" "Yes. I told the doctor I fell down the stairs." "And he believed you?" "Adrian was there. He confirmed the story. He was very convincing." "I'm sure he was." Margaret made another note. "What about the night you left? Walk me through that again, every detail." Lena did. The argument. Adrian's threat to make her disappear. The decision to climb out the window. The USB drive she'd grabbed on her way out. "That drive is going to be the centerpiece of our case," Margaret said. "Adrian's corruption, his connection to organized crime. But the defense will argue you stole it, that you're a criminal yourself." "I know. They'll also argue that you're unstable, that you imagined the abuse, that you're making all of this up to get revenge on a husband who was trying to help you." Margaret's expression was sympathetic but firm. "They're going to try to destroy you on the stand, and I need to know if you can handle that." Lena thought about the bathroom, about shooting those men, about delivering Isabella's baby with blood still wet on her hands. "I can handle it," she said. "Good, because this isn't just about putting Adrian away. It's about sending a message that powerful men don't get to hurt people and walk away, that corruption has consequences." Margaret leaned forward. "But I need you to understand something. Even if we win, even if Adrian goes to prison for life, there will be people who don't believe you, who think you're lying, who send you hate mail and death threats. This is going to follow you for a long time. I'm going into witness protection after the trial. New name, new city. I can handle whatever comes before that." Margaret exchanged a glance with Roman. "She's tougher than she looks." "I know," Roman said. "That's why she's still alive." They spent the rest of the afternoon preparing. Margaret brought in a colleague who specialized in prosecuting domestic violence cases. They talked about trauma responses, about how abuse victims often have inconsistent memories of events, about how to stay calm when the defense attorney tried to rattle her. By the time they finished, Lena's head was pounding and her throat was raw from talking. Roman drove her back to the house in silence, both of them exhausted. "You did good today," he said as they pulled into the driveway. "I just told the truth." "That's harder than it sounds, especially when the truth is painful." He killed the engine, turned to look at her. "The trial starts in 6 weeks. Between now and then, you stay at the house. No going out unless I or one of my men is with you. Adrian's people might try something." "You think they'd come after me before the trial?" "I think desperate people do desperate things, and Adrian is very desperate right now." Back at the house, Lena found Elena in the kitchen preparing dinner. The older woman took one look at her and immediately poured her a glass of wine. "You look like you fought a war," Elena said. "Feels like it." Lena took a long drink. "Has there been any news about Adrian or the Russians?" "The Russians are quiet. Dmitry Volkov disappeared, probably went back to Moscow or wherever he came from. His organization here is in chaos. Roman's people are handling it." Elena stirred something on the stove that smelled amazing. "As for your husband, he's in a federal holding facility, heavily guarded. His lawyer tried to get him released on bail, but the judge denied it. Too much of a flight risk." "Good. You should eat something. You're too thin. Isabella would be upset if she saw you not eating." Despite everything, Lena smiled. "How is she? Have you talked to her today?" "She called this morning. Matteo is perfect, according to her. Doesn't sleep much, but perfect. She wants to bring him home in a few days." Elena's expression softened. "She keeps asking about you, when you'll visit again." "Soon, I just need to—" Lena stopped, not sure how to finish. Need to what? Pull herself together? Stop feeling like she was drowning? Figure out how to say goodbye to the first real friend she'd had in years? "You need to take care of yourself," Elena said firmly. "So sit, eat, and stop carrying the weight of the world on those shoulders." Lena sat. Elena put a plate in front of her, pasta with some kind of sauce that tasted like comfort itself. She ate mechanically at first, then with more hunger as her body remembered it needed fuel. "Can I ask you something?" Lena said after a while. "Of course. How long have you worked for Roman?" 23 years. I started when he was barely out of college, trying to hold together his father's organization and raise a teenage sister at the same time." Elena smiled at the memory. "He was so young, so angry, so determined to prove he could do it." "Was he different then?" "In some ways. Softer, maybe, before he learned that softness gets you killed in this world." She paused. "But the core of him, the part that protects the people he loves, that's always been there. That's why Isabella trusts him, why I trust him, why you should trust him too." "I do trust him. That's what scares me." "Why?" "Because trusting people has always ended badly for me." Lena pushed pasta around her plate. "My parents died when I was 20. I had no siblings, no family. Adrian was the first person who made me feel like I belonged somewhere. And look how that turned out." "Roman isn't Adrian. I know, but I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to decide I'm more trouble than I'm worth, for this whole thing to fall apart." Elena reached across the table, covered Lena's hand with her own. "Some people are worth trusting. Roman is one of them. So is Isabella. They don't abandon family, and like it or not, you're family now." The words settled into Lena's chest, warm and heavy and terrifying. The next 6 weeks passed in a strange kind of suspended animation. Lena spent her days preparing for the trial, reviewing evidence with Margaret, practicing her testimony. She spent her evenings at the house, helping Elena with dinner, reading in the library, trying not to think about what came next. Isabella came home with Matteo a week after the attack. Watching her navigate new motherhood was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. The exhaustion, the joy, the fierce protectiveness that radiated from her every time she held her son. "I don't know how you do it," Lena said one afternoon. They were in the nursery, Isabella nursing Matteo while Lena folded tiny clothes. "Do what?" "This, taking care of a newborn while your brother is dealing with the aftermath of a war, while I'm about to testify against my abusive ex-husband. It's too much." "It's life." Isabella adjusted Matteo, who was making angry grunting sounds. "Things are never going to be perfect. There's never going to be a good time. You just have to keep moving forward anyway. Is that what your mother taught you? No. My mother taught me that other people's needs don't matter as long as you get what you want. Isabella's voice was matter of fact. Roman taught me the other stuff. How to be decent. How to protect people who can't protect themselves. How to choose the hard right over the easy wrong. He's a good man. He's a complicated man. But yes, at his core, he's good. Isabella looked up at Lena. So are you, by the way. In case you were wondering. I killed 2 people. You protected yourself and me and my baby. That's not murder, that's survival. She paused. You know what I think? I think you're punishing yourself for finally fighting back, like you don't deserve to defend your own life. The accuracy of it stole Lena's breath. Maybe, she admitted quietly. Well, stop it. You did what you had to do. And you're about to do something even harder. You're going to stand up in court and tell the world what Adrian did to you. That takes courage most people don't have. 2 days before the trial started, Roman called Lena into his study. He had papers spread across his desk, his expression serious. Sit, he said. Lena sat. Her stomach was in knots. The trial started in 48 hours and she'd barely slept in days. I got a call from Margaret, Roman said. Adrian's legal team reached out. They want to make a deal. What kind of deal? He'll plead guilty to corruption charges. Accept a 20-year sentence. In exchange, all charges related to domestic violence and kidnapping get dropped. And you don't have to testify. Lena's hands clenched in her lap. No. Think about it. You'd be free. You could go into witness protection right now. Start your new life without having to relive your trauma in front of a courtroom full of strangers. And Adrian gets to pretend the abuse never happened, gets to keep his narrative that he was just a corrupt prosecutor, not a man who terrorized his wife for 6 years. She shook her head. No, I'm testifying. Even if it means spending days on the stand, being cross-examined by lawyers who'll try to make you look crazy? Especially then, because that's what he's counting on. That I'll be too scared to face him. Lena met Roman's eyes. I'm done being scared. Tell Margaret no deal. Roman studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, but understand what you're choosing. This is going to be hard, possibly the hardest thing you've ever done. I've done hard before. I can do it again. The trial started on a Tuesday morning in a federal courthouse in downtown Miami. The building was imposing, all marble and columns, and the weight of justice carved into every surface. Lena walked in flanked by Roman and 2 of his men, Margaret Chen leading the way. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, lawyers, people who'd followed Adrian's career and wanted to see him fall. Lena felt their eyes on her, cataloging every detail. The simple gray dress Margaret had chosen for her, her hair pulled back, no makeup except a touch of concealer to hide the shadows under her eyes. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who'd survived something terrible and was here to tell the truth about it. Adrian was already seated at the defense table. He looked different than she remembered, thinner, older. The shoulder injury had healed, but he carried himself carefully, like he was still in pain. When their eyes met across the courtroom, his expression was blank. No anger, no fear, just nothing, like she didn't matter enough to hate anymore. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The trial began. The prosecution went first. The lead prosecutor, a woman named Sarah Watkins who specialized in corruption cases, laid out the evidence methodically. The USB drive, the financial records, the communications with Russian organized crime figures, the cases Adrian had thrown in exchange for money. It was damning, absolutely damning. And through it all, Adrian sat there with that same blank expression, like he was watching someone else's life fall apart. Then it was time for the domestic violence testimony. Sarah called Lena to the stand. Walking to that witness box felt like walking through water. Everything was too bright, too loud. She was sworn in, stated her name, sat down in a chair that was somehow both too big and too small. Ms. Mercer, Sarah began gently, can you tell the court about your relationship with the defendant? Lena took a breath. I met Adrian 6 years ago. He was charming, successful. He made me feel special, safe. I thought I was lucky to be with him. When did that change? 3 months after we got married. I burned dinner. He grabbed my wrist hard enough to leave bruises and told me I was an embarrassment. Her voice was steady, matter of fact. Then he apologized, bought me flowers, said it would never happen again. But it did. It got worse. He had rules about everything: what I wore, where I went, who I talked to. If I broke them, he'd punish me. Sometimes he'd hit me. Sometimes he'd lock me in our bedroom for hours. Sometimes he'd just explain very calmly all the ways I'd disappointed him. That was almost worse. Did you ever try to leave? Once. 2 years ago. I made it as far as the driveway before he caught me. Lena's hands were clenched so tight her knuckles were white. He put me in the hospital that time, told them I'd fallen down the stairs. No one questioned it. Why didn't you report him to the police? Because he was a federal prosecutor. His friends were cops, FBI agents, judges. Who would they believe? The successful prosecutor with a perfect record, or his unstable wife who couldn't even keep a clean house? Sarah walked her through the rest of it. The years of abuse, the escalation, the night Adrian threatened to make her disappear if she ever tried to leave again. That's when I knew I had to run, Lena said, because I realized he was going to kill me eventually, and I'd rather die trying to escape than wait for him to do it. Can you tell the court about the USB drive? I took it from Adrian's office the night I left. I knew he kept something important in that locked drawer. I thought maybe it could be insurance, something to keep him from coming after me. Did you know what was on it? Not until later. Not until I was in Miami and someone helped me understand what I'd taken. The cross-examination was brutal. Adrian's lawyer, a man named Thomas Brennan with a reputation for destroying witnesses, came at her with everything he had. Ms. Mercer, isn't it true that you have a history of mental instability? No. You were hospitalized for depression in 2019. I was hospitalized for injuries sustained when my husband broke 3 of my ribs. The depression diagnosis came later, after months of abuse. According to medical records, you were prescribed anti-anxiety medication. Yes, because living with Adrian gave me panic attacks. Or because you were unstable to begin with, and you're now using these allegations to justify stealing from your husband and running away. Objection, Sarah called. Argumentative. Sustained, the judge said, but Brennan kept going. He tried to paint her as vindictive, as a liar, as someone who'd manufactured evidence to destroy her husband's career. He brought up every inconsistency in her story, every gap in her memory, every moment where she'd failed to leave or report the abuse. If he was really so terrible, Brennan said, why did you stay for 6 years? Lena looked at him steadily. Because he convinced me I had nowhere else to go. Because he isolated me from everyone I knew. Because he made me believe that if I left, he'd find me and kill me. And because, her voice cracked slightly, because I kept hoping he'd change. That the man I'd fallen in love with would come back. But he never did. That person never really existed. By the time she stepped down from the witness stand, she was exhausted, wrung out, but also lighter, like she'd put down something heavy she'd been carrying for too long. The trial lasted 3 more days. Other witnesses testified. Financial experts explained the money laundering. FBI agents detailed Adrian's connections to organized crime. Roman even testified briefly about the attack on his property, though his lawyers were careful to keep his own activities out of the record. Then it went to the jury. They deliberated for 7 hours. Lena spent that time in a private room off the courthouse, Roman and Isabella with her. Matteo slept in Isabella's arms, oblivious to the drama unfolding around him. Marcus stood outside the door, alert and ready. What if they don't believe me? Lena said at one point. They'll believe you, Isabella said firmly. You told the truth. That's all you could do. What if it's not enough? Then we'll figure out what comes next. Roman's voice was calm. But I think you're underestimating how powerful your testimony was. You looked that jury in the eye and told them exactly what he did to you. That matters. When the call came that the jury had reached a verdict, Lena's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst. They walked back into the courtroom together, sat in the gallery, waited while the judge called for order. Has the jury reached a verdict? The 4-person stood. We have, Your Honor. On the charge of corruption, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud? Guilty. On the charge of domestic violence and abuse? Guilty. The list went on. Guilty, guilty, guilty. On every single charge. Adrian's face didn't change. He just sat there, staring straight ahead, while his entire life collapsed around him. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later. But everyone in that courtroom knew what it meant. Adrian Cross was going to prison for the rest of his life. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, cameras flashed, people shouted questions. Roman's men formed a protective circle around Lena, keeping the chaos at bay while they moved toward the car. Ms. Mercer, how do you feel about the verdict? Do you have anything to say to other abuse victims? What's next for you? Lena stopped, turned to face the cameras. Margaret had told her not to make any statements, to just get in the car and leave. But she had one thing she needed to say. If you're living with someone who hurts you, she said, her voice carrying over the noise, I want you to know something. It's not your fault. You didn't cause it. You don't deserve it. And there is a way out. It might not be easy. It might be the hardest thing you ever do. But you can escape. You can survive. You can build a new life. She paused. I did. And if I can do it, so can you. Then she got in the car, and they drove away. The sentencing hearing 2 weeks later was brief. The judge gave Adrian 45 years to life to be served in a maximum security federal prison. No possibility of parole. It was effectively a death sentence. Adrian was 53 years old. He'd die behind bars. As they led him out of the courtroom in handcuffs, he looked at Lena one last time. She waited for the anger, the threats, the promise of revenge. Instead, he just looked tired, beaten, old. I hope it was worth it, he said. It was, Lena replied, and she meant it. The witness protection process started immediately after the sentencing. Federal marshals took Lena to a secure location, began the paperwork for her new identity. She'd be Elena Reed legally now. New social security number, new background, new everything. But before she left Miami for good, she had one last thing to do. She went back to Roman's house. Isabella was waiting for her in the library, Matteo sleeping in his bassinet beside her. So this is it, Isabella said. Her eyes were red. You're really leaving. I have to, you know that. I know, doesn't mean I like it. Isabella stood, crossed the room, pulled Lena into a fierce hug. You saved my life. You delivered my baby. You're the strongest person I've ever met. And I'm going to miss you every single day. I'll miss you too. Lena's voice broke. Take care of him. Take care of Matteo. Tell him about his Aunt Lena when he's older. I will, I promise. Isabella pulled back, wiped her eyes. And if you ever need anything, if witness protection doesn't work out, if you need help, if you just want to come home, you call Roman. He'll make it happen. Roman was in his study, as always. He looked up when Lena entered, set down the pen he'd been writing with. So, he said, this is goodbye. For now. Maybe forever. Witness protection doesn't usually let people come back. Maybe. Lena sat down across from him. I wanted to thank you for everything, for taking me in when you had no reason to trust me, for helping me fight back, for giving me a chance to be someone other than Adrian's victim. You did the hard part. I just provided the support structure. It was more than that. You gave me a family, even if it was temporary, even if I have to leave now. That's something I'll carry with me forever. Roman was quiet for a moment. Then he opened his desk drawer, pulled out a small box, slid it across to her. What is this? Open it. Inside was a silver bracelet. Simple, elegant, with one word engraved on it, family. Isabella helped me pick it out, Roman said. She wanted you to have something to remember us by, and to remind you that no matter where you go, no matter what name you use, you're still part of this family. That doesn't change. Lena's hands were shaking as she fastened the bracelet around her wrist. It felt solid, real, like a promise. Thank you, she whispered. Take care of yourself, Elena Reed. And if you ever need anything, I know I'll call. She stood, started toward the door, then stopped, looked back. Roman? For what it's worth, I think you're a good man. Complicated, maybe, but good. He smiled slightly. Isabella says the same thing. I'm still not sure I believe either of you, but I appreciate it anyway. 2 years later, a woman who called herself Elena Reed walked into a small bakery in Portland, Oregon. She'd been living there for 20 months, working as a bookkeeper for a nonprofit that helped domestic violence survivors. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was meaningful. And it was hers. She'd built a quiet life, a small apartment, a few friends who knew her as Elena and didn't ask about her past. Morning runs along the waterfront, evening classes at the community college, working toward a degree in social work. It wasn't the life she'd imagined for herself 6 years ago when she'd married Adrian, but it was better. Because it was safe. Because it was chosen. Because every morning she woke up without fear, and that was worth more than any amount of money or prestige. She was picking up coffee when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just a link. No message. She clicked it, curious. It was a news article. The headline read, "Former federal prosecutor Adrian Cross found dead in prison. Apparent suicide." Lena read the article twice. Adrian had been found in his cell early that morning, hung himself with a bedsheet. No note, no explanation, just gone. She waited to feel something. Relief, maybe, or satisfaction, or grief for the man she'd once thought she'd loved. Instead, she just felt tired. She deleted the article, finished her coffee, went to work. That evening, another text came through, this time with a message. "Thought you should know. You're free. Really, truly free. Stay safe. R. Roman." Somehow he'd found a way to send her the news without compromising her security. She wasn't surprised. Roman had a way of taking care of family, even from a distance. She sent back a single word. "Thanks." Then she added, "How's Mateo?" The response came a few minutes later. "Walking now, getting into everything, drives his mother crazy. She says to tell you hello, and that your room is always ready if you ever want to visit. Maybe someday. Maybe is good enough." That weekend, Lena volunteered at the domestic violence shelter she'd been working with. She ran a support group for women who were trying to leave abusive relationships, listened to their stories, shared pieces of her own, carefully edited to protect her identity. "How did you know when it was time to leave?" one woman asked, young, maybe 25, with bruises she tried to cover with makeup. "When I realized that staying would kill me," Lena said honestly. "Not right away, but slowly, piece by piece, until there was nothing left of who I used to be." Was it hard? Running? It was the hardest thing I've ever done, and also the best, because even on the worst days now, I'm still free, and that's worth everything. After the meeting, the young woman approached her. "Thank you for sharing, for making me feel less alone." "You're not alone," Lena said. "None of us are. And if you decide to leave, there are people who can help, people who will protect you. You just have to ask." She gave the woman her card, watched her leave, hoping she'd call, hoping she'd find the courage to choose herself the way Lena finally had. On Mateo's second birthday, a package arrived at Lena's apartment. No return address. Inside was a photo. Isabella, Roman, and Mateo at what looked like a birthday party. The little boy was grinning at the camera, chocolate cake smeared across his face. On the back, Isabella had written, "Wish you were here. Never forget your family. Love always, I and M." There was something else in the package, too. A plane ticket to Miami, open-ended, valid whenever she wanted to use it. Lena put the photo on her refrigerator, put the ticket in her desk drawer, and promised herself that someday, when enough time had passed, when she felt ready, she'd use it. Because Isabella was right. Family didn't end just because you had to leave. It waited. It endured. It made space for you to come home when you were ready. 3 months later, Lena got a call from her supervisor at the nonprofit. There was a new grant opportunity. They wanted to expand their services, hire more people, help more survivors, and they wanted Lena to lead the initiative. It would mean more visibility, her supervisor said. Your name would be on documents, in reports. You'd be more public-facing. I know that's complicated for you, but I can't think of anyone better suited for this work. Lena thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. I'll do it. You're sure? I know you value your privacy. I do, but I value helping people more. She smiled. And I am tired of hiding. I've spent too much of my life invisible. It's time to be seen. That night, she called the number Roman had given her 2 years ago. For emergencies only, he'd said. She figured this qualified. He answered on the second ring. Elena. Roman. I need to ask you something. Go ahead. If I become more public-facing in my work, if my name starts appearing in professional contexts, is that going to be a problem, security-wise? Adrian's dead. The people he worked with are either in prison or gone. You testified, served your purpose, moved on. No one's looking for you anymore. He paused. Why? What are you planning? I'm going to run a program helping domestic violence survivors. It means stepping out of the shadows, being visible again. Good. You should be visible. You have things to say that people need to hear. His voice warmed slightly. Isabella will be glad to know you're doing well. Tell her I said hi, and that I think about her and Matteo every day. I will. And Elena, if you're ever in Miami, come by. The offer still stands. You're always welcome here. I know. And Roman, thank you for everything. Thank you for saving my sister's life. Twice. That's a debt I can never fully repay. After they hung up, Lena sat in her small apartment and thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago, running through a storm, desperate, broken, convinced she'd never be anything more than Adrian's victim. That woman had jumped into black water to save a stranger, had delivered a baby in a bathroom during a gunfight, had stood in a courtroom and told the truth even when it hurt, had chosen justice over revenge, life over death, hope over fear. That woman had been stronger than she'd known, and the woman she was now, Elena Reed, survivor and advocate, and someone who finally felt like she was living her own life. She was strong too, maybe even stronger, because she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building something, helping others, making a difference. She was choosing where she belonged, and she belonged here, in this small apartment with its thrift store furniture and its view of the river. She belonged in the support group meetings, holding space for women who were where she used to be. She belonged in the work, in the fight, in the daily effort to make the world a little bit safer for people trying to escape darkness. And someday, maybe soon, maybe years from now, she'd belong back in Miami too. Back with the family who'd taken her in when she had nothing. Back with Isabella and Roman and Matteo, the little boy whose middle name honored her courage. But for now, this was enough. This quiet life, this meaningful work, this version of herself she'd fought so hard to become. She looked at the bracelet on her wrist. The one word engraved there, family. She'd learned what that word really meant. Not blood, not obligation, not chains that held you prisoner. Family was choice. Family was people who saw you at your worst and loved you anyway. Family was jumping into storms for each other. Family was the place you could always come back to, no matter how long you'd been gone. And family was knowing that the night she jumped into that black water hadn't just saved 2 lives. It had saved her own. She'd chosen to help a stranger, and in return, that stranger and her fierce, protective brother and everyone in their complicated, dangerous, beautiful world had chosen her back. Some debts couldn't be repaid. Some bonds couldn't be broken. And some people, the ones worth keeping, they didn't let you fall. They caught you when you jumped. They held on when you were drowning. They reminded you that you were worth saving. Lena, Elena, whoever she was now or would be tomorrow, she finally understood that. And it made all the difference.